God damn it.
Oh yeah, no, I think they all hold merit. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Well, hey, we're rolling, and first of all, I got to say welcome everybody to another episode of Face the Truth, and I hope that everyone had an awesome Christmas. I'm looking forward to talking with my buddy here. We haven't talked in a long time. It's been a while. We hung out years ago, but I really like this guy's work, and it's so different from mine in so many different ways. Technically, I don't understand how he does what he does. Like, it's confusing to me, to be honest. Like, I'll get into that, but he does really cool work. He's got an original look and style, and does so much work. Like, very prolific. He's always pumping stuff out. So everyone, please put your hands together for Orlando Arocena.
Arocena. What's going on, bro? How you been, man? Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, of course, man. Thanks for joining me.
It's been a long time. I think the last time, we actually got to hang out was years ago over at Adobe Max.
Was that the last time?
Yeah, I mean, we've shared some common, stomping grounds.
Yeah.
And a few folks that,
Dude, that was like 6 years ago.
Made some dead presidents off of us so that they could buy their next Jaguar or Maserati,
Yeah. Yeah, man.
But yeah, man, I think it was like 2014 or 2013.
Yeah, it's 2014.
But when did you do your incredible Time magazine cover of the Pope? It was on the.
That was 2013 in December. So it must have been 2014 then, because I think it was. Was it in the summertime or the fall or something like that?
Oh man, it was in LA, so LA is always hot.
Yeah.
I think it was like October, dude.
That whole thing is a blur to me. It really is. It was October because it was my birthday.
Rockstar, man. I mean,
it was my birthday. That's why I remember.
Your birthday.
Yeah.
Reason why you can't, conjure up any memory of it.
You know what's crazy about the Adobe Max thing? For people that don't know what that is, I didn't really know anything about it until when I painted the Pope cover. I had a lot of people calling me out from all over the place, wanting me to do things, and it was cool. There's a lot of cool things I got to do. And Adobe, I had done like all these interviews and stuff, and then Adobe calls me, and I'm like, "Oh, cool, Adobe. I use Photoshop." That's all. That's as far as my thing went. And they're like, "Hey, would you like to do like a workshop type thing?" And it's at this thing called Adobe Max, and I still didn't know much about it, but I was like, "Oh yeah, that sounds pretty cool." And I've done workshops before, and they said, "Yeah, it's just really cool, and you'll talk for 20 minutes, and you'll share, you can talk about whatever, talk about your work, your style, whatever." So I was like, "Oh, cool." So I agreed to do it. They told me what they're going to pay me. They also hired me to do some artwork for I think it was called something. Oh man, some kind of Adobe magazine thing.
Yeah, Adobe Create.
Yeah, it was some kind of thing. So I was doing that, and then I'm going to talk for 20 minutes at this thing. I'm like, sure, cool. I had no idea that I was going to be talking. When I said I would do that, I did not know that I was going to be talking in front of 7,000 plus 8,000 people in the Staples Center or whatever that was.
Well, that was just the Staples Center, dude. Imagine like beyond that, which was like through the wire and.
Oh yeah, like so I was not prepared. I mean, I was prepared for what I was going to talk about, but I wasn't prepared mentally for, like, when I got there the day before, they said to come and you're going to talk. I mean, how was it that I missed that detail? because I mean, to be honest, I didn't really look into Adobe Max very much. I was excited. Weird Al was like one of the guests, and I was like one of the main guest speakers. And so,
Yeah.
but then when I get there inside, there's a stadium,
Oh yeah.
or like a, you know, it was just massive. I got so nervous I had to do like a test run, and I was so like freaking out, like I can't believe that. And then the next morning, I think I was like on at like 9 in the morning or something. And the woman before me, she was like a professional photographer. I was like standing behind watching her on stage, and all of a sudden my legs just started to turn to jelly, like just and my mouth got super, super dry, and someone gave me a water. I just downed it. And all of a sudden the guy's like, please welcome Jason Seiler. And
Yeah.
I go out there. I was like, holy crap. It was one of the scariest things. I was not, there was,
No,
and
dude.
it was like
You
my
know,
first, I mean, I do stand-up stuff now.
yeah.
That was basically I mean, I did stand-up in a way, if you think about it. I did 20 minutes in front of 8,000 people. I got some laughs.
Oh no, I mean you did your Arnold
Yeah.
shtick, you know. I mean
That was so
you were riveting, bro. You were riveting for those 20 minutes, man. I mean,
that's just
you
funny.
killed it down in hell. You know, if all you saw was silhouettes of heads, I would say it was like the first few rings of Dante's Inferno. You know what I mean? Like you were there, you know, entertaining the hellish masses, ready to rip you apart. But they were just like, oh shit, yeah, we know this guy, man. And then you did your Arnold shtick. You know, the thing is, the reason why you probably didn't, your legs turned to jelly was because we probably killed a bunch of old fashions the night before. You know?
Oh yeah, no. You know what's funny about that is, that morning, I brought in a Maker's Mark thing like this big,
Nice.
and he wouldn't let me bring it in, to my green room, and I'm like, I said, I know I normally don't drink in the morning like this, but
Yeah.
I am really nervous right now. Like I've got to walk out in front of 8,000 people, and they're like, nope. And so my buddy went to some store and bought a couple of little teeny ones and brought them in. And so 9 in the morning, I was like, bam, bam, before I went out there. And then I was like, oh, hey, California, I'm here for you.
Seriously, because that morning they had a totally released Adobe Illustrator, so I was, you know, that was like my big thing that day for Adobe, you know, my being on the splash and going wild. So I was like, holy shit, man, this is ridiculous. But at the same time, I had a dual task. Adobe had, you know, invited me out so I could at least cover like a, you know, and keep the whole social wire hot for the whole 3-4 days of what, you know, that whole Adobe Max is about. So I was kind of like this social off the cuff commentator of what was going on, you know. So when you came on, all of my social was about Jason Seiler and Schwarzenegger and the Pope, obviously, you know. People were just bugging out, and I was like, oh yeah, no,
man,
we've got common people in between us.
that was pretty funny though. I was so nervous that my dumbass thought, I mean, luckily it went over well because people thought it was funny, but
did it go smooth? Did it go quick enough for you? Or
once
it was just like a pause in this time spectrum, dude.
Well, like the first minute, by the way, if you're curious about what we're talking about, you can look on YouTube. It's on, actually, I think there's a link on my website and you can see my talk so you can see what we're talking about. But I was so nervous that I thought, if I can somehow get the crowd to laugh a little bit, then maybe I can feel more comfortable up here. And so I came out and did this dumb Arnold thing, and then the joke wasn't the annoying Arnold impersonation. The joke was, I'm sorry if I confused you. I'm not the real Arnold. And then I was like, or something like that. My name is Jason Seiler. Sorry to disappoint you. You know, it was just like so dumb, but it was like on purpose, you know. But then people laughed, and I was like, now I can get into it. So
yeah, I mean, it's always that first wave, man. I remember, you know, having to do a whole lecture over at the Miami Ad School down in Wynwood, beautiful graffiti mural place, the Mecca, you know, and it was on the heels of me having to be flown out to Colombia, Barranquilla, to judge the parade of floats for Carnival.
Oh, cool. That's
And
awesome.
that was just a whiskey binge of a weekend where I caught maybe 45 minutes of sleep every night. So the next thing you know, I'm sobering up on the plane over to Miami, which is like 3 hour plane ride from Barranquilla, Colombia. And I get there and I'm supposed to be on stage and have everything whipped up by 5 p.m. and all these students, the student bodies there, this, that, the other thing. I have no voice.
Oh
I have
no.
absolutely no voice because I've just been yelling it, screaming, dancing, partying. So the moderator gets there and he's like, "All right, Mr. Arocena, pleasure to meet you." And I'm just like, I can barely talk. I could barely talk.
On the day of my daughter's wedding.
Yeah. I had the whole, Godfather thing going. So right away, I open up by just apologizing. And then I go, "Can I get see a show of hands of how many people are Colombians?" And everybody, like 50 people raise their hands, totally outnumbered there. And I'm like, you know what? F you to all of you. To all of you. It's you guys and the way you guys party and celebrate so hardcore is the reason why I'm here without a effing voice, man. And they're like, "Oh, you're
little friends.
you're partying it up in Carnival." And I was like, "Yeah, so just bear with me, man. Bear with me."
Did it go okay though?
Oh no, it went great, but it was just one of those moments that you have to throw yourself to the wolves to see what the reaction is going to be, so that you could at least feel comfortable to proceed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know what? That's a good thing you brought up because, like, even if I knew when I agreed to do the Adobe thing, even if I knew then what I was getting myself into, I still would have done it because you don't turn down opportunities. It's weird. Like I get asked all, like, "Aren't you nervous to do this or that?" Like, of course, I get nervous when I get a huge commission for something. I always want it to be, there's a lot of pressure, but I'm not going to not do it, So that's just the way that, that's the way it works. If you want to keep moving on and,
no, totally. Totally. Sometimes, depending upon the atmosphere, I might get a little too zany. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's times where I've done interviews for, some pop culture magazines that are like, genre focused, where they're like horror focused or whatever. And I kind of just vibe off of, who's interviewing me. If they're just as wacky as I am, then, yeah, cool. If we're somewhat little paced, and it's like, okay, yeah, there's moments where we could allow ourselves to be wacky and have a laugh and get back to the focal point of what's going on, then that's cool. But those really, lifeless, interviews, or at least, when you get to have to follow on the heels of somebody at a big session that way, that's just been serious and monotone the whole time of their presentation. And you're like, "Oh man, I'm gonna fucking explode on this thing next,"
That is the worst, man.
Yeah,
that is the worst.
But hey, I mean,
it's funny.
I'm always surprised to get an invite to do anything. I'm one of those cats that I'm just still like laughing whenever I get a brand commission or a big commission, and I'm just like, holy shit! How I always tend to wonder, how do you know me? What was it? Was it a pigeon that just crashed into your head while you were driving on the freeway, and like somehow you saw emanations of like Mexi funk and my face, like, "Oh yes, hello."
Orlando.
You know what I mean? Orlando and Caribbean leather. I just, I'm always baffled, and I'm always thankful, for playing. Honestly, I don't know if you consider it too much work. You know what I mean? I don't. I don't want to sound corny, but it's really a lot of playtime, man. I have to literally put a break on myself to not submit so many concepts when it's like, on the opening few days of a relationship.
Yeah, let's talk about that, because I was looking through a bunch of your stuff, and first of all, I've got a lot of questions because, as I mentioned before, like for most illustration work or fine art, there's not very much mystery for me. I know I can look at something and I know the techniques, or at least I can figure it out a little bit. Sure. What I like about your, like, I was looking at your Behance page or whatever, and it's really cool. You show a lot of your poster work, and you show a lot of the sketches. There's a lot, like sometimes there'll be like 5 or 6 comps.
Yeah.
And so you put a lot of like ideas and thought into a design before you jump into it. Um, what's your process with that? Like if you get a project that you're going to work on, um, do you just keep fiddling it around until something feels right to you, or do you send all those away and someone picks the one they like the most? And how does that usually work?
It totally depends upon like, the job at hand, the project, the collaboration. If it's something for a very well-known brand and it's being conducted through a middleman agency, like say BBDO or Saatchi or Gray, then you got to be careful, or at least I try to be cognizant of the fact that, whoa, there's a middle person here who's trying to gauge the collaboration, but also do it in a way that it's going to represent the agency in context of the client relation. You know what I mean? The big brand agencies.
Mm.
When it's more along the lines of me playing around with the post posse and Hollywood, whether it's Disney or Fox or Sony, or Warner Brothers, it's a bit easier.
Yep.
Sure, there's always a brief, there's always a kickoff, there's always an intent and a goal of what we want to reach. And there's always, guardrails and mandates that are like, hey, let's not try to focus too much on character personalities or resemblances because we don't have the rights to use them, which always baffled me. It's like, dude, you guys just put a freaking multi-million-dollar movie together. How do you not have rights for the time period to use these guys, the resemblance of these fellow, actors and actresses?
That doesn't make any sense.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So sometimes, they're looking for unique ways to circumvent that. And I'm such a knucklehead that I'm like, well, no, these actresses and the personalities that they give forth to the personality of this film is very important. Like I can't just show the back of their head. You know what I mean? It just doesn't. It's not respectful to me, nor is it challenging. You know what I mean? You're a master of portraiture. You know what I mean? And expression and personality. Imagine if somebody was like, say, hey, do Rodney Dangerfield without using his face or his likeness.
Dude, first of all, thank you. Appreciate that. But I recently did a poster design for a show called Breeders. It's coming. It's a show that's on Hulu with Martin Freeman as the main actor. And I think it's for their 2nd season promotion or something like that. And so I did the sketch. Now I'm just waiting to hear if they approve of it. And if they do, I get to do the painting, which will hopefully be like a billboard and that sort of a thing. So that's awesome. But they only I only had a couple days to do it.
Yeah.
And then they gave me references of the father and the mother characters from screenshots of behind the scenes while they're filming. And most of the shots are kind of in the dark, like dark lit scenes.
Yeah.
And when you zoom in on them, it's all pixels, and that's the highest res they could give me. So there's so much information. So I had to like draw them. I had to like zoom way out so I could see small and try to draw it. It was really difficult. And then the children, there's one picture of the boy that they gave me and no pictures of the daughter. And there's a couple pictures of the daughter like snuggling with the mother on the kid's bed, and the mom's reading her a book and her head is covered and you can't see her. That's the only picture of the daughter they gave me. And they want all of them on this poster. And and it's kind of like a Rockwell-ish type style is what I wanted to do for this thing. And what I had to do was I had to basically that's all they could provide for me. And this is supposed to be like a real big, production thing. And they're like saying, this is why we want you to do this. We want you to paint these in the same kind of quality that you painted your Schitt's Creek stuff. And I was just like, well, they gave me like really awesome references.
Sure.
So with this one, I had to search the internet, try to find some of my own references of these people, and try to use them a way where it's not obvious where I'm getting it from. And then the little girl, no pictures of her because she's a little girl and she's like just started. There's one video I found of her trying out for a play in England or something like that. And I paused a couple shots straight on. And I had to pause a couple shots and screen grabbed it with my iPad. And that's the only reference that I could. It was so it's the same thing. I deal with the same thing.
Yeah.
That's my point.
Yeah,
It's
dude.
like,
I mean,
it happens. It's like, dude, we're not magicians.
no, I mean, oh man,
Like,
I
I need good
love.
reference. I mean,
Yeah, seriously, brother, man. I mean, we work off of reference,
yeah,
and we recapitalize, and then we build upon it. You know what I mean? And there's times where having such a relationship with the Hollywood studios, where I'm blessed, and they'll say, okay, sign all this paperwork, and we'll send you kind of a screener. And I'm always like a freaking child in a Toys R Us when that happens, man.
yeah,
I'm like,
that's awesome.
oh yeah, this is cool. And then there's other times where they're just like, yeah, we don't have anything other than the trailer.
Yeah,
You're like, okay, well, I don't want to use a lot of the screenshots, verbatim from the trailer, because everybody and their mother's going to be using those. You want to stand out. You want to make sure that the collaboration between you and the person requesting your time and collaboration is going to be unique. That it's not going to be like, oh yeah, I've seen 5 of those already today. You know what I mean? Or the duration of the campaign.
It's like the Mandalorian. Like, I love that show, and I've seen so many artists like doing their own fan art of it, and it all looks the same for the most part.
Using the same silhouetted, walking into the sunset type of thing.
There's some cool ones, but it's like,
Yeah, I mean, hey, everybody's putting in their time. That's great. I mean,
but that's because they only have the same thing to work with. but if you're going to do artwork for them before, you would expect that you're actually doing artwork for them, that you would get the most reference.
Oh, dude, let me tell you something. You would tend to think so, man.
Yeah.
It's like, I had to do for the opening season for season 2, I got hit to represent South America. And they're like, hey, we want to do a translation in Spanish of This Is the Way.
You got to do something for the Mandalorian.
Yeah.
I did see that on the Beyond site. It's awesome. That's so cool, man.
I ended up going, I was like, okay, living in South America, I live in Colombia, by the way, Bogota. And we didn't get Disney Plus until just this year, just recently with the premiere of season 2 of The Mandalorian. Wow. So I've seen the other episodes in the previous season through, the dark web, but they're like, hey, what do you want to do? And you get a sense that everybody's going to go one direction and you make the best effort to go the other direction. So I knew that, the actual visual, ID of the Mandalorian was this Tatooine desert, hot climate, very arid, big sun, a lot of tan, ochre colors for the environment. And I was like, nah, screw that. I'm going to, capitalize on this one instance in the trailer that they show this kind of icy Hoth planet. And I was like, fuck it. I'm going to have, Mando running wild with a bunch of TIE fighters, on his ass with this baby Yoda kid.
Yeah.
So I was whipping up a few sketches, traditionally, I was chilling out with my sketchbook, ballpoint, just scribbling, and then I scanned them in and I took them a bit further. And then I said, you know what? I need to add to my toy collection, man. Let me run out and go get some of the Hasbro, Star Wars Black Series. And I ended up grabbing a few figures, and I was like, let me do exactly what Jon Favreau is doing with this new technology over in Hollywood, where they're using these incredible LCD screens to do the whole ambient environment and all that. So I was like, screw it. I used my Dream Color display that I have here. And I just posed everything. I just started referencing like Arctic polar backdrops. And I just started taking shots just to have visual cues of how I could try to, bounce a color palette. It was the first time that I actually got so zany on a project that way with like toys and all that. But
it's cool. That's awesome.
It worked out. I mean, anything that's at my disposal. My father-in-law lives with us. And I'm always bugging. I'm like, hey, listen, I need your hands.
Yeah, I do that. Yeah. No, I do that all the time.
In reference to like how many sketches and concepts, I'm always starting off with wanting to address the brief, see what they're, and then, shoot holes into it, see whether it really holds up, and then do the whole competitive landscape, dude. You know, I jump on Google and I'll go see what's been done, what's existing for this particular property or this cult fan favorite. You know, that's the worst when you got to do something that's already been out there for over 30 years, like a Halloween or a Friday the 13th that's just been jammed already.
Yeah, so it's so iconic already. Yeah.
It's like, and then you want to be clever, but then you want to also, you know, be exciting. You know, you don't want to take the easy road out, or at least I really don't. You know, and that's
that's a really good point, because you know, you like the way that I can relate to what you're saying is like when I get asked to do something like a higher profile magazine or whatever, and I know other artists that I basically essentially compete with. I'm friendly with them, but when I get a cover like that, I'm thinking like this is how I put food on my table, and this is how I represent who I am, and how can I do something just that like I try to aim for levels above what I've seen these other artists do.
Yeah.
And not in a cocky way, in a like in a it does kind of feel in a way like marking your territory.
We're both here like, no, not in a cocky way, not at all. Meanwhile, we're like, fuck yeah, it is.
Yeah, I mean, but what I mean by that though is it is like in a marking your territory kind of way. It's like, hey, I'm going to try to make this as badass as I can.
Yeah.
And sometimes it doesn't work, sometimes it does. And then other times I'll see one of these artists that are like basically my peers that I'm competing with for the covers. I'll see them do one and I'll be like, God damn it, that's good. Yeah. And then I'm like, all right, next time I get to do something for that magazine, that guy just raised the bar. Now I got to raise it again. Like, you know, I think it's a good way to be, because it pushes yourself to not stay in that comfort zone all the time, you know?
Oh no, man. You know, I'm a big, strong believer of pushing yourself. There's really great benefits of having friendly competitiveness, you know, that friendly competitive streak of like, oh, okay, cool. That came out hot, but man, you better watch your back when I throw my next one up there, man. Yeah. You know, but I also look at it in terms that it's awesome to do your best for kind of like a heritage play of that particular theme or for that property. You know, if it's a Rolling Stone property, holy crap. I mean, you know, the latest book that they just put out, you know, a few months ago with all those portraitures and illustrations. Yeah. It might as well be the Jason Seiler book, you know what I mean? But other than that, I totally respect that. And it's not really about being cocky or being, you know, malevolent, you know what I mean? It's really just the fact that you want to make sure that the reason why they tapped you on the show to play was valid, you know? You don't want to go into it with one eye closed and you know, dragging your ass. No, screw that. You know?
It's hard though, man, because you know it's very frustrating when you get a project that this could be so cool. Like it's the one I was telling you about with not getting the good reference. It's like, man, I could really, really take this to some awesome place if I was able to. You know, but like sometimes you feel like you have so many restrictions or.
Oh man, I get those
like,
I get those with the properties as well, especially with the Hollywood properties, or you know, whether we're doing a steel case, DVD limited edition stuff. You know,
dude. Like, by the way, that one you did for Spawn is badass, man. That's awesome, dude. That's a really sweet design.
Hey, thanks, man. You know, that came in as, you know, a surprise. You know, just like the rest of them. You know, it's something that, you know, I enjoy doing poster work, and it's great for the galleries and it's great for the brand. But you know, we're all big art fiends. You know, I'm a big art snob, just like you do. We could go hand in foot over all the different schools, you know, and still come out on top, laughing our asses off on like who's been more inspired by what stream of, you know, consciousness from those years. You know, the same thing is going on today, you know, in different communities and creative creative platforms. This whole poster community, people are, some folks roll their eyes like, oh man, that whole fan stuff. Yeah, I get it. But that whole fan stuff really has an insane amount of net worth for the studio's entertainment as far as merchandising, home entertainment, network, and they pay well. And I'm looking more towards, hey, doing limited edition posters are great. But not everybody has an insane mansion with empty walls to hang up each and every one of your collections. You know what I mean? So that's kind of why I've kind of shot into wanting to do steel books and DVD cases, because we're all suckers for a really good freaking movie, and if it's been packaged well, then shit, man, you pull it out every so often.
Like I don't buy very many DVDs or Blu-rays, but if there's one it's a movie I like and the packaging is cool, that makes it, I think it's really smart for companies to do. They should be doing that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, now they're doing like these insane wraparounds, and they're coming out with like display cases so you can put them on your mantle. And I'm just
that's really smart, because it's like really, it almost doesn't make sense to buy DVDs or Blu-rays anymore. But I know people that still want to have hard copies of things. Like if it's a movie I really like, I still want a hard copy of it.
Yeah,
because if I want to watch it whenever I want to watch it, and let's say the streaming company just all of a sudden doesn't have it on there anymore, or I mean, there's definitely movies that I've bought on
the case,
like on streaming things. But what if it glitches or whatever? And I don't, you know what I mean? Like I always feel nervous about that. But I wanted to talk to you about. So this is what I'm confused about with your work.
Talk to me, man.
First of all, you do it. Is it all in Illustrator?
All in Illustrator.
Okay, so this is the number one thing that's confusing to me, because I know nothing about Illustrator. And I look at your work, and you show these, like these versions with like all the weird marks everywhere and all this stuff. What the hell is happening? I don't understand. It's so confusing. You show these things, and like, this looks so complicated and so weird. Like, I'm like, what is he doing? I watched some of the videos that you've done, and I'm not sure. Like, just can you explain this process and what this is actually? Because it literally is so confusing to me. I just don't.
You got to start off with a high dose of your best bourbon, and follow it with the best peyote trance. Right after that. No, I mean, honestly, the thing is, I mean, the major difference is kind of the DNA differences between Photoshop and Illustrator. Photoshop works on a very pixel-based, voxel type of dot type of thing when you're using brushes, and that's why you get like a very soft edge and allows you to mesh and blend colors very smoothly. Illustrator is all math. It's almost as if you're playing with having to cut out pieces of paper and overlap one another and make sure that you're plotting out points. I mean, it's very rigorous. And there's people that go, well, they look at the tool menus and they're like, I see a brush and I see a pencil, but they don't act anything like what I expect them to do, like when I'm playing in Photoshop. And it's because it's plotting out points. Everything in Illustrator is all kind of math-based and plotting out points. And for the longest time, it's always been the go-to for agencies to do logos and IDs, brand IDs, because it's scalable, especially if you keep them within a flat tone.
Yeah, so that you can basically do that at any size.
You could scale it. You could send over, a logo that's well within, a small footprint of MBs, via email, and it's beyond 300 DPI. It's already high res, beyond high res. It's infinitely scalable, right? And that's one of the reasons why it attracted me, because, having put in my 20 years plus doing agency work, art direction, creative direction, design across agencies and different global brands, everyone was like, I don't want to touch that program. Can you do it? Can you do it? And I said, you know what? I want to play around with this program and treat it as if it's one of my murals or of graffiti and aerosol. Everybody's doing Photoshop at the time, and I was like, I wanted to go in a different direction. No disrespect to Photoshoppers, I play with Photoshop. It's just for some reason I'm a glutton for punishment, man. I was just like, man, I fucking hate this program, but I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna wield it so that it's my bitch, and it took a while. But the whole thing is that yes, you could the traditional way of working in Illustrator is basically scanning something in and then tracing and plotting out over your drawing, and then similar to like, an old Hanna-Barbera or anime hand painted cell, you're putting down the foundations of kind of your light and contrast theory. Here's your mid color, and then on top of that, we're going to use a step below for a shadow and a step above for a highlight. That whole rudimentary.
So all those like points of things are,
those are all anchor points that you need to have there to have a particular stroke or a particular shape exist. So
are they all in different layers, or
they're all in different layers, man? There's times where I forget to click a layer.
How do you it just looks like such a crazy, like, I don't know, whenever I see those and you show, I'm like, this doesn't make any sense to me. Like, it's so weird. Like, what the heck?
It's crazy. I love there's ways that I'll just totally mess with people, man. And I'll be like, okay, I'll just start with diagonal bars. Vertical bars, right? Of gradients. That's one of the things that I love about Illustrator is that, you grab the pencil tool and you make a shape, right? You close it off and you make a shape, and right away that thing's got color. It's got information inside of it. Either it's flat, one whole color, or whether you're clicking to make sure that there's a gradient in there, and that gradient could be a spectrum of colors that right off the closing, sketch motion, it looks like you've got something dimensional because it's got a highlight, a midtone, and a shadow.
Yeah.
Right away, right there. That's one of the things that I kind of loved about exploring Illustrator and Vector, because I was like, oh, cool, man. It's not like I have to, in Photoshop, I was so used to drawing over a sketch or filling it in like a coloring book. And I started losing the spontaneity of things. I love just throwing shit down and running with it. And Vector, as arduous and as unforgiving as it gets sometimes, bro, I just found a unique way of going beyond the traditional way that all the other guys were just clicking points and keeping it to their, flat colored tones, and hard black outlines. And I was like, screw this, man. I'm gonna, I want to get together and throw as much as I want and see whether I could, dude, I'm a big fan of Sargent, and how he would just massively load a freaking brush. I was like, man, I just want to massively load with as many gradients, this one shape or this one stroke. A lot of what inspires me comes from years before. It's not just a digital world for me upon, oh man, I'm a big sci-fi guy and I'm going to be playing it up on all my tools. No, man, I'm dude, I'm an NC Wyeth fan to the heart that tends to bleed out, John Singer Sargent if you slice me,
That makes sense. I'm still like like the process is so interesting. It's like a different way of thinking. Cause for one thing, I know I've seen a lot of people use Illustrator for like making logos and stuff.
Yeah.
I've got a buddy who's just like amazing at it. And he does what you said, like he'll do like a sketch or whatever, and then just goes on top of it, and it just clean, sharp, just he makes it look easy. But I'm looking, like, there's one particular piece, for example, of yours. I think it was like a gun, a close up of a gun, and I don't know what that was for. I can't remember.
Was it like a Han Solo gun or something like that?
It's like some kind of futuristic looking gun. The image it's on your Beyonce site or Behance, but like it shows the gun, and then it shows like you did like a pencil sketch, and then the next phase is showing all the points, and then the next one is like the rendering on it. And it's so confusing. I'm looking because I'm like, how did you get that rendering that way in Illustrator? That's the thing that confuses me. Like, if you're only doing it like in these, like, kind of like how do you do the rendering that way? That's what I'm curious about. Like,
this way, it's like, how traditionally a studio painter will, decide upon one overall tone for the base of the canvas, right?
Yeah.
And then, depending upon what school or what methodology you're from, you're either plucking out highlights with like a Q-tip or a kneaded eraser, right? Or you're going in and you're beginning to really throw down the shadowy contrast before you even start plucking out that. Okay, well, if that's kind of the rudimentary way of building up an oil painting, right? In Illustrator, I basically try to do the same thing. I'll open up a white page and just throw down a shape, right? I can't just throw down a stroke. I mean, I can, but usually I'm throwing down a rectangle to be the overall shape of the canvas and giving that a particular tone, and then building upon that and opening up with, like, you know, certain times I'll be stuck. You know, I don't have an exact sketch in mind, and I'll just start, you know, automatic drawing, you know, almost like Joan Miro from the Surrealists, you know, just like automatic drawing and seeing what conjures up in your imaginative eye, and go, oh shit, okay, cool, I could use this shape and expand upon it because I could see that there's a narrative beginning to open up within this crazy abstract area. And then at times I'll be a bit more objective, and I'll go, no, you know what, I want this really cool, crazy, you know, athletic female about to tote, you know, an M60, and she's got to stand this way. And, you know, working with the stylist, you're throwing down your kind of contour drawing, right? Which they always tell you not to do in like, you know, studio classes. They're like, no, you draw from the form within and understand where, you know, certain things lie, and muscle tones. And I'm doing the opposite. I'm contour drawing so I could at least fill in that shape right away. And then, you know, scaling it and facing it, almost molding it as if it was a sculpture, and then itemizing, okay, what are the different elements? Is there a flak jacket? Okay, let's draw that. That's a different layer. Let's throw a different color on that. And, you know, everything's, you know, prior to me coming out with a lot of gradient usages was just very hard edge to edge type of colors and tones.
Yeah.
Right? I started using, you know, throwing a lot more brush techniques into something that most people didn't know even existed, with gradients and vector, and treating it just like Photoshop, or treating it just like any of my paintings, you know, that I might have that I'm playing around with. And it's really freaking awkward because you could throw down a stroke and then you click on it and you see that there's a freaking vein or an artery of anchor segment, anchor segment, anchor segment, and each anchor you're able to pull out a Bezier curve and adjust its curvature.
Oh,
it's really fucking awkward, man. It's just not the traditional sense of painting anymore, you know?
It seems like, I'm telling you, man, like when I see you know, when you show the underbelly of it, I'm just like, that is so weird. It's so confusing for me. Like, because it's a completely different way of having to think, you know, which is nothing wrong with that. I'm from a more of a painter's perspective, where I think about brushstroke. I think about sculpting as well. Like I'm thinking of it in three dimensions, and I sculpt the form with the way, you know, following the planes in the face, and the, you know, like what you said about Sargent. Sargent did that a lot too. He would just sculpt with his brushstrokes. And so I think of it more like that way. So when I look at how you do these Illustrator images, it just seems like so I mean, that to me is ultimately digital painting more than what I'm doing. Like people always, like, I get called like, oh, you know, Jason's like is a digital painter, and it's like I never think of myself that way, because I just think I'm just painting. You know, I just happen to use Photoshop for this one, but I also do oil and watercolor and gouache. And I do my digital painting in the exact same way, basically. I mean, there's of course there's advantages because it's digital, and you can fix things easily and stuff like that. But yours is the ultimate digital as far as I'm concerned, because it's like I would just be like, wait, like when I paint, I use most of the time I use a very limited palette, because like I don't know if you know who Jeremy Lipking is.
Sure.
I gotta have him on one of these days, but he's one of my favorite painters. He's really amazing. But when you look at his, like, I have one of his videos from years ago, and you look at his video and you see his palette, there's just a million colors.
Yeah.
And I'm right away like, well, that's too many for me. Excuse me.
Hey, no problem.
I'm like, that's just way too many. That's like, man. sucked in the air.
Hey, no, where's that maker's mark you mentioned
Yeah,
earlier?
I don't got any. But yeah, when I see that palette, I would have some if I did. I there's like, he's got all these different variations of greens and different things. I mean, just like, and when I do my palette, it's like I've got like 4, maybe 5 colors on my palette, and that's all I need. It's all I want. And there's nothing wrong. Like, he's obviously like a master, and he, whatever. But the same thing though is like when I'm looking at your images and that, I'm like, it's too confusing.
It's too confusing. No, it's brother, man.
It hurts my head. It hurts my brains. Like,
no, man, I appreciate that. I'm doing just the way I kind of just look at it, in context, is that I'm just painting as well. I'm just doing
just a different way of approaching it.
Just a different way, and I'm trying not to relinquish so much to the computer. You see so many folks that are like, button jockeys or filter jockeys, and like tap 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 tap, and the computer automates something, and it's like boom. It's, hey, that portion's done. That was cool. Let me do it again. I need to make this pattern in a circular manner, and I just don't want to draw each one.
Yeah.
No, man. I mean, I come from the school of hard knocks, that it's like literally you want to see that, you make it happen physically. You paint it, you draw it, you envision it, you go through refining it.
Yeah.
Sure, the computer allows us to cut so many corners, but that's one thing that I believe that is our last refuge as
well. That's what's cool is you're making art with it. Like, you're not. That's one thing. Like, I always feel like I think it's important to not abuse the computer. It's very easy to do that. Now in Illustrator, you were talking about brushes. Are there a plethora of different brushes with textures and so on that you can get, or is it very? Because it seems like it doesn't seem like there's much.
It's a pain in the ass. I mean, Adobe's doing their thing of coming out with new apps that you could, hey, take a snapshot of this. Hey, now it's a brush. Yeah, you know what I mean? But they all handle very different than what we're familiar with as far as Photoshop. Photoshop, you have a plethora. You have a cornucopia that just goes beyond the galaxy's realm of hey, here's, you want to simulate a can of rough, dry brush on a very textiled canvas. Here's a brush that lets you do this. You know what I mean? And then also it's very accommodating, for you to design and create your own brushes. With Illustrator, it's a bit different because you don't get the same type of level of bitmap essence that you could go, okay, I'm gonna fade this out to the edge so I can have a very soft, feathery, brush. It doesn't. A lot of the brushes natively in Illustrator are hard edged, hard stroked, and
that's what I thought.
Just recently that they came out with like this kind of bristle brush, faded out type of thing. Kind of, it just fades out, and there's not a whole lot of expansion to brushes. You get kind of the same type of dry ink brush type of look, and people tend to do their thing with it, either have it end out in kind of a half tone, but it's nowhere near what a lot of the kids playing with Photoshop tend to have at their disposal.
Yeah, it's interesting.
So it's wild. It just doesn't. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, it's definitely. I mean, I don't really see many. I don't really see many people doing what you're doing. I mean, it allows you, I think, to have like a pretty unique voice in the art world, because I mean, I think there's so many limitations in a weird way.
Yeah.
But you're showing that you can actually do some pretty damn cool things with this. Like,
yeah.
And I mean, it's interesting. I like that you say that it sucks, and because I'm a big fan of. Well, I shouldn't say I'm a big fan of struggle, but I respect struggle, and I like, for example, so this recent time cover I did,
yeah,
one of the things that I did while working on that painting was, first of all, it's like 36, maybe 36 or 38 inches in height, 300 resolution. So it's huge file. And when I was going to paint the background, and when I start off doing like a raw umber, like an underpainting, I could easily just fill that in, but that's not, I know that's not, I'm not going to get the final result look if I do that. So in order to get the final look I want, I took this texture brush that has sort of a grainy, canvasy type feel to it. And I have to do like washes, and it's weird because it seems like it's just so simple. Like, oh, you just fill it. It's like, no, because the file was so huge, I would do like a one stroke, and it would go, like, I go like this with my hand, and it would go. It was like, and it's
telling you like, hey, Jason, you gotta run out to the bank. Go do it, man. Go do it now.
Yeah. And it was because the file was so huge, and like it was just, and but what was interesting is there's a struggle there.
Yeah.
But because of that struggle, I was able to build up those brush strokes in a certain way that I could only, that it felt even more traditional because of that. And it allowed it to almost react in a way like layered gouache or something like that. And in the final painting, you can see those things coming through, and it would never have happened if I just filled it in. So that's and a lot of people maybe they're not traditional artists at heart, they wouldn't know that, or they don't have enough patience. But because of that thing, like, it was a struggle, and it was annoying, and it took way longer to do something super simple, but it allowed me to have that look in the end that I couldn't have gotten any other way. And so that's what I mean about the struggle. Like I'm a big fan of not abusing the computer. Like I want my thumbprint in there. I want, so that's that's interesting about what you're doing with Illustrator, is that you're able to use such a, like, it's such a difficult way to get any kind of rendering. But it also allows you to have a specific look, because you've got, like, I can see one of your images and right away I'm like, oh, I can tell right away it's yours. Just there's like an Orlando aesthetic, if that makes sense.
I appreciate that, man. I mean, you know what? You mentioned before, hey, what goes into your process? I was telling you kind of the rudimentary type of things. But just like you just mentioned now, with that experience of you overlaying things, you don't see it within my time lapses, right? But I'm a big fan of kind of that layering technique that you would find like on old Venetian murals, you know what I mean? In cathedrals, where, they would just, they would contemplate how long they're going to want to just keep on overlaying this type of egg tempera or diluted, tempera on top of one another to get this particular soft fade. I'm doing the same thing in a way with my shapes. A lot of people, I don't know, they tend to get kind of anchored into this one way of, okay, well, I'm going to draw this one shape. It's going to have this one color. It's going to have this one color, and I'll start building other shape elements to give it proportion and dimensionality.
Yeah.
But what I love to do is that I love to take that same shape, fill it in with like a particular color or line of gradients, and within that same gradient, they'll have opacities shifting left and right from like 0 to like 50 to 100. And then what I'll do is that I'll take that same shape and I'll duplicate it, put it on top, and I'll hit it with a different tone and drop the opacity.
Yeah.
So that, things have this kind of like, homogeneous kind of fade to it, because I can't soft blend colors like you would, where you grab a smudge tool and be like, okay, let's smudge this and blur it, so that it blends into one another. I've got to take a whole different premise on how to fake the outcome to that. It's almost like faking it in a way, but faking it in a very authentic manner, not like in a very, downright, bullshit way.
How
it's wild, man.
How long does it normally take?
It's just
for like one.
Oh, it depends, man. I mean, it depends, man. It depends upon who's involved. I mean, you understand. There's times where I'm sure that you just fly, and get something done within, 15 minutes. And you're like, shit, damn.
Not that
But
fast.
when the client comes in, yeah, get out of here. Bull, you're so freaking modest, man. I've seen you work, man. But I mean, when you have other people involved, like, people that are flipping the tab, you know what I mean? They want to review it, and they want to analyze it and critique it. And that's fun. I mean, that's part of the collaboration. That's part of what we get paid for. So, if it's, I do these morning freestyles, vector freestyles, I call them, right? And I try to limit myself to anywhere between a half hour to something less than an hour, 15 minutes, and I'll have reference set up, and sometimes I'll just throw it off the cuff, just like a real freestyle. The point of it is for me to warm up and expand upon the confidence level that I have for drawing and doing this vector stuff.
Yeah,
I don't want to scan in a sketch that leaves out levels of spontaneity, or imagination. I love, having a few oop moments and then going, well, okay, cool. That, that's part of my arsenal now. I know how I did that. I know how I got there. So a typical project, client-based project, could run 8 to 12 hours, with maybe, a few days in between of pause to review and then shoot back.
Yeah.
And then there's moments where, I'm up against the gun and I've got to get it done within three hours.
Yeah, that's always fun.
Are you there?
Can you not see me?
Oh shit!
Can you not see me?
No, yeah, you totally just paused, dude.
Oh.
You're like,
yo, what's up? Yeah, sorry about that.
No problem.
So how have you been? Like with all the crap going on, like what's it been like where you are right now?
Oh man, it's wild. It's wild because I'm no longer in the States. All right, I'm in Bogota, Colombia, South America, happily married, and at the very start of this whole damn pandemic thing, we were keeping an eye. I'm big on the news. I like watching the news, and I was like watching how things were unfolding on the other side of the world back in January, and rumors of this damn thing going out of control over in China. Will it ever cross over borders? Blah blah blah. Finally, March comes around. Everybody's like, "Holy shit!" I went into my mode of like, "Holy shit! I got to make sure me and the family survive." So I ended up like buying, a huge bin refrigerator, and like the first day that I ordered food to fill that sucker, it never got delivered, man. Homeboy who's supposed to deliver the food, I spent like $350 on steaks and vegetables that were gonna freeze dry and noodles and rice and just the whole surplus idea of like, we gotta outlast this thing just in case, the infrastructure of society falls. Dude, homeboy ran off with it, man. He ran off with like $300 worth of groceries, which, if you do a comparison as far as like the dollars to pesos, that's well over a month's use of food.
Yeah.
And it never showed up. And, I was giggling about it because I could never get mad at that. I was like, holy shit, this guy was just in a panic mode as I was. And I'm hoping that, that food really helped him and his family out. You know what I mean? But it's been wild, dude. I mean, at the very, very first early months where the whole pandemic came down and we were like, oh man, we're buying extra rubbing alcohol bottles and, you couldn't find them anymore on the shelf, and we're buying masks, and we brought like, I ended up, me being the old kid from the Bronx and graffiti, I went out and bought like the hardcore, breathers with the dual suction cartridges, and my wife was like, I'm not going to wear that. I'm like, yes, you are, and you will wear that. I don't care what kind of ensemble you put together, because she's a big germaphobe. But what was really shocking was that I live like downtown Bogota, which like I'm like a few blocks away from like all the main agencies, advertising agencies, and it's very quiet, really cool parks, residential, pretty hip, and then one day I'm just hearing this buzzing sound, and I look out my kitchen window and I see this drone flying by, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? And I look, dude, the city decided to use drones to with speakers to tell folks, hey, you're not wearing your masks, you're not practicing safe distance, you better be. Yeah, dude, this is like
some Blade Runner shit.
yeah, man. And I'm like talking to my buddies up north in the States, and they're like, we don't even have that. And I'm like, man, you fuckers aren't even wearing your masks, man. What the hell
No,
you
all we had was,
you know?
it's okay. You don't have to wear a mask. If you don't want to wear a mask, you don't have to wear a mask. Trust me. Fauci said no masks.
Dude, it was wild, man.
Wait a minute. Fauci says masks are terrific. They're terrific. No, they're not. Yes, they are. Biden's a whore.
Biden's a whore. Oh man, it was really wild. It was it gave me a different sense to what Biden had, man. Dude,
Biden wears a huge mask. It's the biggest mask. It's so huge. When he wears it, it's like this big. It's like this big. It just covers the whole face. This is what Biden looks like when he wears a mask. Look at Joe. You can't even see your face. It's so big.
It's insane, man. It's insane.
Our life's like a circus. It's a circus. It's like it's been insane, man.
Dude, it's beyond insane.
Has it been like as far as the sickness and stuff? Have you guys gotten hit hard there?
No, we've gotten hit. Early on, it took a while. And there's a lot of people that are blaming the country or the way that it's been run, because people for the longest time were like, close the airports, close the international airport, close it.
Yeah.
And they didn't get closed until probably July, August, which was well too late.
Yeah.
By that time, it was pretty wild. I mean, we did get hit, and we're still getting hit hard. For instance, like this week, with all the celebration and the holidays, the mayor, the governor, they're both like, and the president, they're like, okay, we're going to practice this thing which applies to like cars. They have this license plate lottery thing where if your license plate ends in an odd number that day, say, tomorrow's an odd number, that means you can't drive your car if it ends in an odd number, right?
Wow.
They're doing the same thing with your state ID. They're like, hey, if your ID ends in an even number, you can't come out today. You can't go too far outside of your community. So they're really, and it helps. It sounds wild, but it really, really helps.
Well, no, I think they're trying to come up with something to help, because, I mean, I think that part of the problem we're having in the United States is that half the people think it's bullshit, and the other half are like taking it seriously. And we're just trying to stay safe, as much as possible. I mean, I'm hoping that we're coming out of this thing soon, but this is a surreal thing, man. It's such a surreal thing to have, especially to have to deal with, just, even as an artist, for our profession, it's been a huge impact, I think. But then just people in general, this is, having kids through this, having to try to deal with your kids. And, it's like, I have 2 teenagers and then 2 babies. And like, it's hard dealing with the teenagers because they don't get to hang out with teenager friends and do different things and everything else. And, they have their teenage angst already. And with all this, and then you've got like my 3-year-old who is just at the age now where she's supposed to be mingling with other kids, and she's desperate to do that. And like, no, you can't, it's a weird time. And I wonder how it'll affect, the generation as they, you know what I mean? It's interesting to see.
It's obvious that, there will be side effects to all of this.
Oh yeah. It's so many ways.
Seriously. I mean, this was supposed to be the year that, I was going to start the family thing with the wife. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I was like, oh man, no way. No way am I going to have you go to the hospital where basically, they're running out of space. And,
well, we had a baby. We had a pandy baby.
How did you do that?
She was,
well, I mean, not from day one. You don't have to start so far back.
Well, first I spit in my hand. That was how it started. Then it was like counterclockwise, clockwise. Then I did the alphabet with my tongue.
Oh man, the stranger was involved too. Holy
yeah.
shit.
No, but like we got pregnant before I think it was no October, maybe the end of October or early November that we found out. So, and then my daughter Stella was born June 17th, and it was weird just because, for one thing, during in the beginning of this, Chicago was like panicking and shut down, and all the stores were empty and everything. And then my wife spilled bacon grease on her hand by accident, and if I showed you the pictures, you wouldn't even believe it. But basically, her hand looked like Freddy Krueger.
Whoa!
It was just nasty. She had to go get. They didn't want to even accept her into the hospital at first because they were afraid that because she was pregnant, like she's at risk, and they're like, but she had like these giant bubble blisters that just were like, it was so disgusting, dude. It actually looked, if you saw this in a movie, you'd be like, that looks so fake. There's nothing like that for real.
Dude, man.
And then
I could send you a book. I'll send you a book on like different.
I don't want to see that.
And ways, no, of foreplay, because you have a very sick way of foreplaying, dude. This whole bacon grease thing.
Yeah. So they went and they had to cut it all off and then rub in there, get it all. So it was like terrible to be pregnant and then that during all this. And then of course when she had the baby, then it was crazy because we had to be isolated. No one was allowed to come visit to see us or say congratulations, see the baby.
Wow.
I wasn't allowed to leave. No, like if I left, they said you can't come back. And so basically, I was there for 2 days. The recovery was a rough recovery, but so I was there for 2 days, and then I had to leave to go be with my 2.5-year-old, and then because she was being babysat by her, like my wife's brother and stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna go be with Sienna, but now I can't go back. I have to wait until they say that she can leave, and then I can go pick them up. But so it was crazy. And then like we'd be in the waiting room or in our recovery room or whatever, and it's already hard when you have a baby. You're tired and you're getting used to this. The baby has no schedule, and so you're basically not sleeping as it is. But then you finally fall asleep, and then nurses come in and you're like basically trying to sleep while they're in there doing something, and they're like, put your mask on. You're like, oh Jesus, it's like 3 a.m. Okay. And like, so it's like weird stuff like that where it was just nonstop, Yeah. I mean, it was good. Everyone was being safe and everything, but it definitely made the anxiety level way higher with everything going on. And just, there were so many nerves and, but then it's like, then after that, you've got a fresh newborn, and you don't want you can't have anyone come visit to meet the baby. So that's kind of a weird thing too, because normally you have friends and family that want to come and, none of that, but we were safe and we basically baby stepped it, and she's doing great. She's 6 months old now and she's still super healthy and everyone's fine, but it definitely is a nerve-wracking time to have a baby for sure. But
yeah, no, I mean, I what you just described and went through just now. Yeah, man. That's why the wife and I were like, okay, let's wait till this is done. And just be extra cautious.
I mean, having a baby is already a little nerve-wracking. So, yeah.
But I'll tell you, man, that the whole pandemic thing down here is just insane. I mean, the wife and I are germaphobes. She's 100 times more germaphobe than I am. But we've got our masks, we've got black gloves on. We look like we're about to go do like heavy industrial tattooing. You know what I mean? And but we're walking around with like not just bottles of like antiseptic gel, but like actual rubbing alcohol. And we don't own a car, so we have to take taxis. And the taxis have just started putting up a clear plastic partition between them and the occupants.
Yeah.
And there will be times where we'll be standing on the corner and it'll be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 taxis that we have to let go because they don't have that partition, and the whole thing
Yeah.
is sort of like, F no, I'm not stepping in
Yeah.
that car, man. Screw that. I mean, the other night, we went out to go do some Christmas shopping, and it was late at night. Rain was coming down, and there's a cab right in front of us. So it's like perfect opportunity, And she steps in, she sits down, and the guy just coughs, man. I mean, just like, just, and he has a mask on and everything. And the wife just stood there, and she was like, "Oh hell no." She's like, "Nope, no, nope, I'm getting out of here." And just stood up, and I was like, "What's wrong?" She's like, "No, next car, next taxi." But while we're in there, I'm touching, the windows to roll them down so I could get like really good, air flowing through the car. And right away, she doesn't skip a beat. She's like, "Give me a hand." And I'm like, "All right, thanks, no problem." But I mean, even when you're walking into, if you're walking into the malls, there's lines because they won't let you in if you don't have a mask, and then they'll checking your temperature, and then when you get past that, you have like cleaning stations, and even the state buildings. I just had to go do something to get my license. I'm about to pick up a car for the first time down here in Columbia. It's not like when I was living in the Bronx that I could just hotwire one and be like, "Yeah, freaking man, we got a car for the weekend, yeah." This whole visa thing is a trip. Walking into state governments, man, they have like these sanitizing booths that drop like this vapor mist on you.
Oh, that's weird.
So I'm walking in, I'm like a freaking idiot. I'm walking in there, I'm like, yeah, don't drop the soap, bro. I'm like, yeah, right on. And my wife is like, "Come on, man, this is a state building, man. What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Oh, come on. Nobody has like a funny bone in them, man."
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like in a way that you guys are a little bit more, that we don't have things like that going on here. I mean, there's
we're just a third world nation, man. That's all we are.
We're yeah. It is one of those pieces of shit countries, right? It's one of those pieces of shit places.
Oh man.
I took my, this is really annoying, but whatever. Again, I'm happy people are being safe, but my daughter's phone was like not charging anymore. So something weird with it. So I had to take her to an Apple store. I took her to our phone where we have our phone, like AT&T or whatever. And they're like, "No, you have to go to this store." So we go there, we wait in this long line just to get our temperature taken.
Yeah.
And then we have to go into this other long line before we can even talk to one person. And we were there forever. And then once you talk to the next person, then they allow you to go into the store. And I'll get so mad because then after waiting for that entire time, we finally get to the second part, and we tell the person what we need. And they're like, "Oh, okay. Well, it's just let you know, it's going to be about a 3-hour wait so you can talk with someone." And it's like, you made us wait in a long line to get our temperature, and then we waited like you should have people out there saying, "Hey, by the way, there's a 3-hour wait."
Yeah.
Like, why I wouldn't have waited in any of those lines if I knew there was a 3-hour wait.
Oh, dude, you guys.
And what you're doing is you're making people stand together in a group for all this time when it's so stupid. Like it's
so fucked, man. I mean, I literally didn't feel confident with my wife and I, and because we live with my father-in-law, and he's in his 70s. Jesus, man, we don't want to sacrifice or complicate anything here at home.
Yeah.
We play it smoothly, and we didn't. Since the pandemic started, there was at least, I don't know, 6 months that we didn't step foot outside.
Yeah.
I could remember. I think it was September that we started going back outdoors once a week. It was intense, man. I mean, through the start of all this creatively, I took a moment to stop doing poster work for like Hollywood, and I said, "You know what? I'm going to just try to do for my own sanity, dude." It was just insane. I wanted to just try to help do like public service announcements, PSAs, and I was releasing like a new PSA regarding the feedback that I was watching the news or reading in the newspapers, upon this whole COVID-19 thing. And I think the first few posters that I did was all based on not running out to the beach and congregating out in Florida. I mean, like
Yeah.
shit like that, and getting somewhat like, set within a time capsule of like, those World War II bomb posters and, pro safety. And it's up on my Behance, but, I needed to do it. I needed to step away from, promoting entertainment, which probably, we needed at the time, but I felt that I needed to at least be a bit more informative. And
Yeah.
man, I got so much shit. People are like, hey, that stuff really isn't contagious and it's really not that effective. And, it's just the government trying to work a way to get a new vaccination works that might have like nanotechnology in it. I'm like, what the I heard and read the most ridiculous reasons why, that were pro COVID-19, and, what I'm trying to do is finish it up. I'm walking parallel to what's going on right now in history with all this COVID-19.
Yeah.
I'm trying to, hoping that when it's all said and done, it's just cooler. We got something valid. We have a vaccine that's not going to kill your impotent, that's not going to make you impotent or, totally have something explode off your body. I already have a few people lining up. I have 3 people lining up to turn that into a coffee table book with like, charities and organizations lined up with it.
That's awesome.
So, yeah, I mean, it's not easy, but everybody finds their own way how to kind of oddly function throughout this whole crazy freaking time in history.
Yeah, we have to, man. It's
intense.
Yeah, I don't like it. Not a fan.
I hear you, man. I hear you. I mean, we go out to go eat sushi on the weekends, and we go to our favorite Japanese place around the corner, and it's night and day, dude. The personality of the whole damn place physically has changed. You have so much space in between everything, and everybody's wearing masks, and they hand you like this safety kit so that you could take off your mask or your gloves and like put them in a very like, bacteria, whatever free type of, package. There's a fucking process, there's a process to everything.
It's good though that it's interesting. I just wonder like when all this is, I mean, I don't know how long this is going to last. I mean, who knows, but I wonder how much it's going to affect or change things to where we still wear masks like for years to come, or even how many people are just not going to ever not wear, even though like the government might say, hey, we don't have to wear masks anymore. People are still going to be wearing masks. Hey man, I like it. I feel like Kylo Ren when I'm out there, man. I like walking around. I got my hood up. I even have a red lightsaber. I'm just going for the whole thing. I'm all the time. Like,
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. I think I'm just going to keep being Kylo. Like I get to be that kid. Like, dude, the pandemic's over. It's like, says who? Yeah.
It's wicked, dude. I told the wife, I was like, man, we should put on, the Darth Vader helmet and the Iron Man helmet and go out there and just mess with people, But I'll tell you, man, culture-wise, dude, I grew up in New York City, right? Big melting pot, similar to Chicago, and there were years that I, looking back, there were years that I would see folks wearing masks, particularly from like the Asian part of the society. And I never understood. I thought it was all about, the street pollution and this, that, the other thing, And then when I started coming to Colombia and visiting Colombia and falling in love and this, that, the other thing, I was consulting at an agency here, design agency. And some of the kids there would come in with like a cold or something, and they would wear a mask. And I'd be like, what the fuck, man? Who farted next to you, man? What the fuck? What's up with the mask? And they'd be like, well, I've got a cold. And I'm like, so you put on heavy duty mask, man? What's up with that? It's like, what's wrong with you? And it just dawned on me that I was like, holy crap, certain cultures have already been wearing a mask when they're sick.
It makes sense. It makes total sense. I mean?
Like, whereas being American, we're over there and we're like, what, man? What do you want? Yeah, cool.
I think it's funny too. I think it's funny too. Like at grocery stores, now all the grocery stores have the plastic up between the people, And I've noticed, like different restaurants will have that. And it's like, it is kind of a strange thing that we all have to get used to. But when you think about it, it's like, how many hundreds of people go to the grocery store? That person that works at the register is there all day long, and hundreds of people come by. How many of those people have a head cold, or whatever it could be, and you're just, it took this thing basically till now to be like, yeah, we should put something up between there. That should have always been there. It should have always been there. And like the mask thing, it's like, dude, if you're like, I was telling my wife and some of my friends about this, where I was like from now on, I think this is going to change, because from now on, if I have a head cold and I have to run to some store, I'm going to wear a mask just to be courteous, because and I can't believe I never did that before.
Yeah, I mean, it blows your mind, man. You're like, wow,
it's like the shoe bomber. It's like the shoe bomber thing. Like, like now we have to take our shoes off at the airport. Why? Because some dumb fuck made a shoe bomb, and now we all have to take our shoes off. Or how about before 9/11, pilots didn't lock their door?
No.
That's insane. That doesn't make any sense. The people behind that door are flying the airplane. How in the world was that door accessible before? That is so stupid. I cannot believe how stupid that was.
Well, hey,
never, ever.
You went to gladiator games. Sit on my lap. Fly the plane. Let's go.
It's so weird when you think about it. It's like, there was a time where their door was just open willy-nilly. It's like, what? That is the craziest thing I've ever heard of.
It's totally fucked up, man. It's totally fucked up.
How did it not happen so many times before that, where someone just took over the plane? I mean, it's so stupid. It makes no sense.
I don't know, man. I remember flying as a kid, and my dad would be like, wow, look at that. The whole instrument panel. I mean, right.
People used to smoke on a plane. The fuck?
Oh man, I remember those days, man. Don't even mess with me on that, man. That was crazy.
Yeah, it's just so weird how. See, here's the thing: if you look back in the last 100 years, maybe 150 years, on where, like, it's funny if you think about this. Like, people think about Abraham Lincoln, the 16th president. That was so long ago. No, it wasn't. It was not. It was like a little over 100 years ago. It's like that was like 2 grandmas ago.
Yeah,
like
2 grandmas ago.
Yeah, I mean, that was not a long time ago.
Put perspective in time into your world, man. 2 grandmas ago, dude.
But it's if you think about it that way, it was not that long ago, and all the things that have changed in the last 150 years, it's pretty mind-blowing. And it takes, like, some things that seem so obvious, it's just to make a change. And it's just weird. And like, yes, this pandemic thing is terrible, but I think from this, we're going to learn so much more. We're going to go other places. And
I hope so, man. I mean, we're
better for our society is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I hope so. I mean, there's so much that we've witnessed this past year beyond the pandemic, Black Lives Matters. I mean, all the racial tension this year.
No more reality celebrities get to be president. That's a law.
Honestly, you etch that shit in stone, man. Seriously, that is no longer allowed, man.
Oh,
that should have been done with Reagan, man. You know what I mean? They should have just stopped after Reagan. It's like, okay, that's it, man. But honestly, there's your whole 2 grandma mentality on timeline. There's things that we've totally blazed and wow, big difference. And then there's other really important things that just that have just been swept under the rug and be like, okay, yeah, whatever, we'll leave it like that, And man, this is a year of change, and we've it's been costly, man. It's been an expensive freaking year.
Oh yeah, in a lot of ways, man. It's like, seriously. Yeah. Well, hopefully this is my last episode before the new year, and so I I don't mean to make this a whole downer thing. I
No,
genuinely wanted to have a conversation with you.
I'm over here going, damn, why the fuck am I the downer guy at the end of the year? Holy shit.
No. I don't really see it as a downer thing because, you know, I it's important for me. I want to know how you're doing and everything, but
Yeah.
I just want to let everybody else know um, that I appreciate y'all supporting this podcast and taking a listen and everything. And I'm going to continue to do it this next year. And hopefully we all have a much better 2021. You know, I'm trying to be positive about it.
Oh, dude.
You know, there's been a lot of tragedy. There's been a lot of different things, but at the same time, the one I've talked with a lot of people about this. I'm always blown away by all the good that's come from this as well. The people that have stepped up, and you know, the artists that come up with cool things to do to raise money or to take care of people. Just there's so many different things that people come together. Like, yeah, we can't, you know, and you know, we're not supposed to do certain things right now because we can't get in big groups, but we find a way to still celebrate from a distance or whatever else. The Zoom thing, Zoom is,
Yeah, man.
you know, for a while there, I was thinking Zoom's the one that started this whole thing so that their product could get, you know, so much
Yeah.
exposure. Like, they must be behind this.
Oh, they're definitely behind this, man.
Yeah.
And the whole Zoom wardrobe of just like dressing up from the waist up type of thing, man. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a big thing these days.
There's a conspiracy everywhere. Just look, trust me, it's everywhere. But I mean, I think that, you know, the thinking positive about it and moving forward and just continuing to I think talking about it is good. It's good for growth and it's good for our sanity. And I'm glad that you're doing well and that your family's doing well. And
Yeah,
thanks for joining me for this one, man. This is awesome. And before we end up shooting the poodle here, do you have anything coming up that you want to talk about or promote or anything that?
oh man, no, man. I do, but just like you, half of a majority of it's already locked away in NBA damn contracts that I can't. I could only label out like, hey, yeah, Disney.
So cool things are happening.
Cool things with like these names attached to it at a theater near you. You know, if it opens up, or you know, on a cable channel near you, or you know, I mean, you know, I'm 2021 is going to be an area where I really want to explore a lot more of things that I've kind of just left on the working slab. You know, getting into a bit more of like my litho prints and my wood blocks, you know, trying to get back into the traditional sense of artistry and delivering across the board on that. You know, I think that there's a big upswing on the traditional and analog because, you know, there's the digital is really cool, but it's not as crafty, you know, it's too refined. You know what I mean? Depending upon how you wield it. And for me, I'm looking forward. I'm really pushing a few of my supporters to think differently as far as how we're gonna approach certain themes and audience levels. And it's really freaking exciting. I look forward to everybody, you know, keeping this positive pace of sharing, of communicating, because that's imagine if we couldn't communicate and we didn't have the Zoom thing. You know, I mean,
no, I know.
Crap, man, I'd be smuggling pigeons on the building of, you know, the rooftop, man. Like, dude, you better go international, little birdie. You're gonna go international here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But other than that, I've already gotten a bunch of contracts lined up, which is very healthy. And I'm very, very thankful, and I'm always thankful for the supporters. And you know, I'm not a big numbers guy. I'm not a guy that jumps on, looks at my Instagram every other day, and I'm like, oh man, I'm down so many points, or I'm up so many points. I mean, honestly, you know, I don't feel that, you know, my integration with social is all about that. It's more about just, hey, having an outlet to share and, you know, and to be able to be reachable. You know, there's so many cool aspects of being hit with the DM and certain folks, you know, saying hi or wanting to know, hey, you know, I've got an interesting question regarding billing or contracts. Can you help me out? And I think that's what we're there for, you know. And they love talking about, hey, what kind of reps do you have? And I'm like, oh, let me tell you stories about reps.
There's all kinds of stories.
Oh, Jesus. But no, man, just thank you so much for having me on, man. I mean, it's been well overdue, man. It's,
Yeah.
and I'm just like you, man. I'm very thankful, and man, I'm glad that you and your family are there, and you guys are having fun within this crazy time in history, and you're
Trying.
still being successful. And,
Yeah.
I'm
I
glad
can't
that
tell my family just got back. My wife got back with the kids, so you can hear Sienna.
well, make sure she doesn't slap you with the Freddy Krueger hand, man.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you for joining me for this, man. I really appreciate it. And everybody, check out Orlando's Instagram. It's MexiFunk.
Yeah.
Is that? Yeah, MexiFunk.
Yes, Mexifunk.
There we go. On Instagram.
You're like,
And give him a follow, man. He's got some cool work. I really enjoy it. It's cool too. Like he shares a lot of like video process stuff too, which is really fun. So so thanks again for that. And everybody
Hey,
else,
let's do. Hey, man, sorry to cut you off, dude. Let's do a group show, man. Let's get some portraitures, man. Portrait artists, and then just throw something up in 2021.
yeah, that'd be kind of cool. For me, it's all about time, but I'm open to things. I'm open to working towards it.
Always about time.
And before I go, I want to make an announcement too to anybody following this, but I will be starting a Patreon soon that is going to be all about me being able to try to do art that I want to do. It's going to, I'm not 100% sure on the exact offer, but it's going to be a lot of videos and behind the scenes, sketching, painting, me just shooting the shit while I draw, and only sharing it with Patreon people. It's never going to be released anywhere online. So if you want to kind of have a little peek at behind the scenes of things, that's what I'm going to start to do soon. And it's going to be really affordable, very cheap. Yeah, it'll be kind of a fun thing. I'm looking forward to doing it because it'll help motivate me to do stuff that I want to do besides the stuff that I'm doing for the man all the time. Because I want to start doing my own. I have some ideas of things I want to do, and so this is going to be the beginning process of it. And so I appreciate anyone's support with that, because that's going to help me be able to make that possible. So
looking forward to seeing that, man.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So,
hey,
so everyone, thanks again, and Orlando, thanks for joining me, and we'll catch y'all 2021. Yeah. Well, we'll catch y'all on the flip side. All right.
All right, brother, man. Thank you so much, bro.
Thank you, and have a good New Year's, man.
Yeah, you too, bro. Thank you.
You want answers?